everyone, welcome back to our channel startuplanes.com. I'm Namrata and I'm taking interviews of the CEOs and founders of several innovative startups in India. In today's interview, I'll be talking to Devvaki Agrawal, the founder and CEO of Instrucko. With over half a decade experience in the edtech industry, Devvaki has worked with leading publishers in USA, UK, Asia Pacific and India. Launched in July 2020, Instrucko is an amalgamation of language learning and storytelling. The startup is the world's first one-to-one language learning platform committed to providing high-quality language lessons to students aged between 3 to 15 years. You want to know more about this business? Let's get into the video.
Hello, thank you for joining today. I'm Namrata and I'll be taking your interview. So before we begin the interview, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Devvaki. I'm the founder of Instrucko, which is an edtech company headquartered in London, but operations in India, UAE, and the UK.
Right. So what is the startup all about and how did you come up with this idea?
Yeah, so I think, I've been in edtech for the last, 8 years now. I started working in 2010, and then I got into education in 2015. So I lived in New York for 4 years. I worked for an edtech company there, which worked with big publishers across the world. And, I think the way they worked with content, the way they worked with learning was so unique and different compared to how we had, grown up studying in India. That, this entire idea of actually making sure that we come up with great content for the Indian market is what really inspired me, looking at what was happening around the world and why people shouldn't have access to this international content in India. Right. So that's actually what inspired me to start my company. So I moved back to India in 2019, and that's when I decided to start my company in 2020.
All right. So was there an existing market gap that you could identify where your product would rightly fit in and serve the purpose?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, languages have, we all learn English in school. We all speak English fluently. I think in India now, Hindi and English are pretty much at par with, the requirements, whether you need a job or anything else, interview processes, everything is dependent on how you communicate, right? And when I think, again, like I said, the way we grew up learning was so different. The average teacher-student ratio in India is about 24 kids to one teacher. And I think a lot of times certain things are missed by teachers because obviously it's impossible for them to look into so many students at one time and actually guarantee their success. And obviously students have different things that they're good at, right? So there's definitely a big gap in the market for smaller groups of education. And there's definitely a gap for amazing content, which is international, right? So that's why I think when children are studying for higher examinations, they're very good at quant math. They absolutely ace maths, and they always, Indians are known to do very well when it comes to getting 100 in math. But when it comes to language, even in GMATs, SATs, a lot of times we struggle, and that's because we've just not been exposed to the right quality of education and the right kind of content, right? So there is a gap, and I think that's exactly what Instrucko is based on, just to fill that gap, to make sure that kids are learning the correct way of communicating and the correct form of language.
All right. So when you started out, like you're saying that in 2019 or 2020, where this ideation was all going on. So was there any prominent challenges or difficulties that you had faced?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because as when I started my company, the most important thing that every person asked me was that, are you ready to do this? Because when you start a company, XYZ happens, and also I wasn't married then, so I was single, and I was reaching my age of everyone being like, are you planning on getting married soon? How will you manage your? So I think there were a lot of apprehensions based on the kind of questions I was being asked, and just how every person does it. I think I was just so determined to do this because I absolutely love this space, that these were challenges that I faced, having people believe in in joining a startup, right? So when you it was just me alone, and then you have one more person and the second and the third person, and I think to convince them to join the company at no salary at all then was something that was difficult, right? finding the right people who take you seriously, being a woman. Firstly, I think there's definitely a lot of inhibitions that people have. When I remember making calls trying to figure out who can develop the content, how we do it, and everyone was just like, are you sure? Like, what do is this what you want to do? So there were challenges, definitely. It did help because I was from that industry. I did have a certain amount of knowledge of how these things work, so it's not like I was going into a space that I was unaware of. But yes, there were definitely challenges with people having faith in what I was doing.
All right. So, if you had to explain somebody who had very limited knowledge in this domain, how would you explain your business model to them?
So, we basically create our own content, and I think that is something we completely pride ourselves on. We've got experts from University of Oxford who create content for the 3 to 15-year age group, and the content is very unique. We teach in a storytelling format because who doesn't like stories, right? Everyone likes to listen to stories. We focus not just on language but also on things like critical thinking, emotional intelligence, life skills, right? So all our stories talk about these things and focus on these things to ensure that the student is also enhancing knowledge outside of the classroom. And we focus on English, Hindi, French, Mandarin, German, Spanish. So these are the languages that we teach, and we tailor it to the needs of every child. So you can actually choose to do one-to-one classes or group classes, and everything is completely tailor-made. Our content is interactive, digitized, animated. So when parents often have questions that, my 2-year-old, 3-year-old, how will they sit in front of the screen? We have teachers who trained for hours and hours to deliver these lessons through very interactive content. So it's one is your content and the other is your teachers, and put them together, and then your kid is very, very engaged during the entire lesson because the lesson is highly interactive.
Right. Understood. So when talking about kids and parents, one question pops up in my mind is that what is your target audience? Is it directly the parents or the kids, or are you catering to the B2B model as well, like schools and colleges?
Yeah, so we are B2C and B2B. Most of our marketing happens for B2C because that's what actually requires a lot of marketing efforts. We had Kareena Kapoor as a brand ambassador that we signed up. We do a lot of different collaborations with celebrity moms in India who are also very, very hands-on mothers. So they understand, their children take our lessons. It's not like they're just promoting it without actually doing the classes with us, right? So that's one. And two is, our B2B model is obviously growing tremendously. We tied up with MS Dhoni School. So we do lessons for them, for their students, with our teachers from the UK, and they use our content, and we also train their teachers to use our content to deliver the classes. So instrucko is actually a part of the MS Dhoni Global School curriculum, where they do it is a part of their daily routine that they have an instrucko lesson. And we've tied up with Literacy India as well, which is a non-profit. They've educated over 6 million learners across India, and now we are doing regular classes for them as well.
Well, that sounds great. But the next question is, the two questions actually are kind of overlapping and intermixed. That is, the first question is, why should your target audience choose you? And second is, why is your company standing out amongst the other competitors that you have?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And you firstly, I think you have to try our lesson to believe how good it is, right? Our conversion rates from the beginning have been over 75%, which is unheard of in the industry. We've had people come to us from all different competitors and just talk about how different the quality of the content is, right? The way we teach through storytelling is highly engaging and interactive. Our teachers are all certified, so it's not like anyone can teach on our platform. We tied up with Eton College. Eton X is their online offshoot that we tied up with. And I think that kind of speaks volumes in itself, because to get a brand like Eton, which is hundreds of years old, where Prince William has studied and the royal family have been associated with, is not easy, right? And I think we are distributing that content in India as well. So having said that, I do think that our content is far more superior than the kind of content we see. And our signups are very high, our renewal rates are very high. We've done over 300,000 minutes in the last 1 year. We've had over 2,000. We have over 2,000 paying customers in less than a year. So I think these are just metrics that speak for themselves. And then once somebody joins our platform, back to us, they stay with us. We do creative writing, public speaking. So I think we kind of give them a one-stop shop for all their requirements.
Right. Also, when you are being associated with vendors, be it for technology or anything, so what are the parameters you judge them upon before being taking them on board?
I think it's mostly relationships, I would say. We don't really directly work with any vendors who have not been highly recommended and who have not, who don't have a certain reputation in the market. And when you say vendors, we try and do everything in-house anyway. We do have certain vendors we work with, but again, that there's a very a strong interview process that we follow to ensure that it's being passed by the board, before we actually move forward with them. So yeah, mainly referrals, I would say.
All right. So talking about the future, and since your model is like kind of the future model for India, so what have you planned, like any short-term goals or long-term goals for the company ahead?
Yeah, so I think we've grown 1,000% since we launched, which is July of 2020. We got funded in December. That was just a very small seed funding. We are closing another round in the next 1 week. So we are closing a round in 1 week, which is a pre-series A. And I think with that, we're bringing on a lot more marketing push. So I think the idea is to acquire customers and keep them on the platform, not just, have them drop off the platform. So yeah, I think the goal is to make sure that, we keep tripling, quadrupling our growth as we have been doing, and to grow the team at large and, make sure that we are capturing the market in this space to completely own the language space.
Right. Also talking about the funding part that you had just mentioned, that you have received kind of seed funding and pre-series A. So are you planning to take more fundings for the expansion purpose?
Yes, so we are closing our pre-series A in the next 1 week, and after that, now we actually will be raising series A in the next 6 months, and we've been approached by multiple venture capitalists from across the world, and in the next 6 months we will be closing series A. So yeah, we are looking at that.
Well, congratulations on that. And shifting from this technical part, technical questionnaire, I'd like to ask that. Talking about the employment part in your company, if somebody, say hypothetically, if I am very interested to be a part of your company, but before joining, I want to ensure that what kind of work environment, what kind of benefits I'll get as a team member, other than the monetary benefits, of course.
Yeah. See, I think to be able to join Instrucko, you have to have a very entrepreneurial mindset. We are a startup, and when you're a startup, you can't micromanage people. We have grown quite a bit in the last 1 year, and I think the first couple of people who joined us now, their future plans are completely different because of the success the company has had, right? So I think they're very motivated to do better, and I think that's the kind of energy and the pulse that the company generates, because I think as you see revenue growing month on month, and you feel like you're directly involved in every bit that's coming into the company, it drives you to do better, right? So I think our culture is very. I work out of the UK, and India, so I travel back and forth. Our culture is very entrepreneurial, self-management, but also obviously everything is very structured and process-driven. So you have to have a balance of both, and I think it's a very healthy balance. And yeah, I don't think there's any sort of managerial, it's a very flat system, very, very good culture where people are very friendly. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Entrepreneurial mindset is what I would say for someone who wants to join.
Right. Also, if you were not doing the startup, what do you see yourself doing?
I actually, I don't really know what I would do if I wasn't doing this, because I've been in ed tech for some time and I always wanted to start something of my own. But I think I would probably be I would probably continue to work in the education space. But the one thing that I would love to do and take out more time is to play polo, because I play polo, and I think that's the one thing I would do professionally if I could.
Right. Also, during the pandemic, it was like right about that time when you had started your business. So
Yeah, absolutely.
How had the pandemic affected you as a new entrepreneur, and how had you kept yourself motivated and also your team members to like give an output?
So I think the pandemic was obviously, it hit in March. We launched in July. When you meet people and when you go to an office, you make friends, and it's very easy to make friends when you can go out with them for a meal, or you have lunch together. And I think that is the biggest challenge we faced, because everyone's working remotely. So we tried to do a lot of things like organize Zoom drinks and stuff like that. But of course, I think certain things of just having that human connection is very missing. And I think the second thing obviously is that just the market is very, the schools, parents, there's a day where parents are desperate for online classes. There's a day when parents are complaining about screen time. So there's just a lot of fragility in the market with respect to that, right? So I think you have to be very, very patient, very just trust the process, trust your product, right? And I think just sort of ride the wave, because the pandemic, every day there's a different piece of news. Someday a government is banning online schooling, another government is, it's been a very difficult and turbulent sort of, I think, turbulent time. But I also feel like, we have grown so much in this pandemic, and it's thanks to the pandemic. So that's the flip side, right? Where everyone is desperate for online also, when because they don't have another option. And I think that's something that has really helped people get used to being online, get their children used to being online. And so, all that process just has been created on its own, right? People have just been comfortable now. Being online is no longer frowned upon. It's completely normal for your child to be online.
Right, absolutely. Also, before ending this meeting, my last question would be like, what are your thoughts on startup planes?
So I think, you guys are doing a great job, and I often see a lot of stuff going on, a lot of and I think it helps a lot of entrepreneurs. It helps, in getting people together, getting like-minded people together, because I think it's very selective in terms of the kind of people who view startup lane interviews, who go on your website. And I think it's great for investors. It's great for entrepreneurs. It's great for people who are looking for jobs, and I think it really helps them get an insight into what people are actually trying to do. Because if I go and see an interview, it gives me a much better perspective on the company than just reading something, without really having someone talk about what they're doing. So I think it's absolutely amazing.
Right. Well, thank you for your kind words. But since the time's ending, I'd like to say that thank you for taking out your time and joining this session and sharing your views about your business on our platform to the viewers. It was definitely a learning process here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a very nice day.
Yeah, same to you.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.